So to get started, my name is Jennifer Solf. I am the Education Outreach Coordinator for Win It ACES, and ACES stands for Agricultural Community Enhancement and Sustainability. I will go ahead and hand it to Megan.
I am Megan Green, not Ryan. I am the coordinator for STAY, which is Stewardship Through Agriculture. It's a newly forming grassroots organization in Fergus County area, working to encourage and educate producers in the community on regenerative ag. And we're excited to team up with Jennifer and Abby on this workshop series.
Perfect. So I think now we're going to go ahead and move in to Desi and Skylar's presentation, and you'll hear from Abby right after that.
Okay, is everyone seeing my screen, the correct screen? Yes, I'm getting a heads up. Okay. My name is Desi Seal. I'm the Conservation Program Manager for Win It ACES.
Hey, Desi. We are seeing the notes.
Okay.
I think there's a swap displays. Is that? Oh. Now it's a black. Oh, is she frozen? Maybe.
She seems to be.
Yeah.
We give her a second.
Yeah.
Or might be the weather out at their house, because usually it's pretty good out there.
Yeah.
Well, while we're waiting for Desi to come back, I'll go ahead and introduce myself. I'm Skylar Stenson. I'm the conservation technician with Win It ACES. I'm in a partnership position with the NRCS here in this area. So working between both programs to help our producers to the best of the ability and figure out what fits best for them and their goals.
Okay, I'm gonna try this again.
Oh, there you are.
Okay. How are we doing?
Yep.
Presenter two, we're good. Okay. Thanks, Skylar, for introducing yourself. So my name's Desi Seal. I'm the Conservation Programs Manager for Win It ACES, and also Skylar's our Conservation Technician. Skylar's the NRCS office in Win It primarily. She does bounce around because she's our partner position. I am at the Win It office at the Petroleum County Community Center. So I'm going to go over our rangeland improvement program. We call it RIP for short. It's commonly referred to as a mini NRCS. It does function as in similar fashion. So this program is technical assistance and fiscal support for ag producers to implement conservation practices. I separate it into primary practices, and then our other practices. Our primary practices are based on the most interest that we receive from landowners. So we have water improvements, whether that's wells, pipelines, tanks, seeding cropland back to native range, fence work, and then also mesic restoration, also called low-tech process-based restoration. And that's referring to using what materials we have around to improve riparian habitat. In our area, we're typically looking at BDAs, beaver dam analogs, or PALs, post-assisted log structures. This is a similar technique to what's used in Utah State, where they're using rock to repair head cuts with Zuni bowls, but using the material we have available. And then our other practices, and what we have funding for are invasive species management and conifer woody treatment. We just don't get a lot of asks for that, so we don't have as much funding for that. And then I have our geography up here. I apologize, I didn't realize till too late that it does not have county lines on it, but kind of orient yourself with the Snowies and the Moxons and the mountain ranges there. We include Fergus, Petroleum, Garfield, Mussel Shell. We dip into Mussel Shell and Judith Basin and Rosebud as well. So the process for RIP, I look at it as pre-agreement and post-agreement. So the bare bones are, you're gonna complete the application. You can do that on your own or with a staff member. We're happy to help with that. It is all online. We do require a map for that, which can be as easy as drawing it on Google Earth. If you want help with a map, Skylar's happy to help you with draft a map. Second, we do similar to NRCS where we're going to do a site visit with an ACES staff member. There, we're going to conduct a needs assessment and what you're looking for, and then develop the scope of the project. That can be anywhere from if you're looking at seeding cropland back to native range and doing a rotational grazing system, do you need fence work and water systems as well as the native seeding for a native rangeland? Are you just interested in mesic restoration and what that would look like on your area? Then I have collaborate with partners as needed. This is not required, but we do encourage it. And what that looks like is with Skylar in the NRCS office, she has the capability to coordinate with NRCS and see if your project fits an NRCS program. From our view, NRCS has the most funds and we want to make sure your project gets done. So that's one option we're going to explore if you want to explore that. What that also looks like is working with different partners. The example I typically give is what World Wildlife Fund. One of the reasons I like World Wildlife Fund's program is it's a cost share program similar to ours. It also has an educational component. So if you're interested in going to ranching for profit, they help pay for that. Like I said, that's all if you would like to work with a partner. You're not required to work with a partner, and if you choose not to, then your project remains confidential within ACES. Next is going to be preparing the project proposal for review. That's going to include a budget of the cost share, who's paying for what, and project design, particularly for water developments. We partner with Conservation District to pay for a person in the NRCS office that specializes in those. And it's also going to include why the landowner wants to do this project and how it benefits wildlife and the rangeland. From there, your project goes to Conservation Committee. If it's recommended from the Conservation Committee for approval, it goes to the board. The board decides to approve or not, or deny the project. Once we have approval from the board, we're going to draft a PLA. It's called a private landowner agreement, and I'll go through that on our next page. That agreement goes with the land. So if you sell your land, that agreement stays with the land. And I'll go through what's required of that agreement. Then I have post-agreement, which is construct the project, whether that be the landowner or a consultant, whatever's in the agreement. Once the project's done, we're going to get a hold of ACES staff. We'll come out and certify that that project meets our specs. So ACES usually goes with NRCS specs. So does the project follow the design that was developed by the NRCS CD staff member? Is the spacing for a wildlife friendly fence within NRCS specs that we agreed upon? That's what we're looking for. And then we're going to reimburse the landowner. So for ACES, the landowner bears the cost of paying for the project up front, and we're happy to help find some options if that burden is too large. And then at this point, we would reimburse the landowner for our share of that project. The last thing is monitoring. What we're really looking for here is if you're open to looking at monitoring for grassland bird species, soil health. Particularly with our conifer and our seedings, we do want to do some type of monitoring. The last one more thing, and I forgot about this, is we do ask on the application if you would be interested in doing tours and media. Part of that is, would you be okay with us if you do a new design for a water project? Would you be okay with us featuring that as a blog post online? Would you be okay with us hosting an educational tour and showing your newly designed water project? So that's kind of the bare bones of the process for the RIP application. Landowners typically ask me, what's the catch? So these are my explanation for what's the catch. General requirements are we do a 1-to-1 cost share, and you have to keep it in grass for 10 years. So we're looking to preserve that grassland and not have it subdivided or split up. How we do that is through the PLA, the private landowner agreement. So you agree to keep it in grass and maintain the project for 10 years. Our PLAs are underwritten by Fish and Wildlife Service, Partners for Fish and Wildlife Service. Part of that agreement with ACES is they cover the cultural, which is included in the cost share. But they say we've abided by all the needs for environmental assessment and cultural resources. So we're covered through Partners for Fish and Wildlife. The one difference in that is for MESIC projects, we require a 3-year agreement. The MESIC projects are really new and it's exploratory. I think there was a presentation in 2019. We actually got projects on the ground in 21. So this is still really new. So we've decided to just do a landowner agreement with ACES and the landowner for 3 years. And that's really our RIP program. I'm happy to answer questions. If you have any questions, please contact Skylar or I. Our information is up on the presentation. Skylar's also gonna drop the RIP application in the chat. Okay.
Are there
Happy to
any,
answer questions or move
yeah,
on.
I was gonna say,
Sorry,
are there,
Abby.
no, I was gonna say, are there any questions for these guys before we press on? Well, their contact info is there. You can also reach out to Megan, myself, or Jennifer, and we can forward it if you think of something later. So I'm Abby Byerly. I am the Food and Ag Center Director at Snowy Mountain Development. Snowy Mountain Development is an economic development organization, nonprofit that serves the 6 counties in central Montana. We are the certified regional development organization that serves those 6 counties. Myself, I'm an extension of Montana Department of Agriculture. Our centers, there's 11 of us across the state. And we do work as a network. So if there's something that you're curious about or you've heard about going on somewhere in the state, I can definitely put you in touch with that center director or find out more for you. I drew the short stick tonight, so I get to be the moderator for our panel, which I'm actually pretty excited about. This is a wealth of knowledge here in these 4 individuals. So we'll just start off. Josh, if you're willing and able, I will have you just go first. Give who you are, the organization you're with, and any little background that you think is pertinent.
Very good. Josh Hobbs, Pheasants Forever. I am the coordinating biologist here in central Montana. And is everybody hearing me okay? Very
Yep,
good.
we can hear you.
Awesome. I'm working on a brand new iPad today, so bear with me a little bit. Jennifer's helping me out with moving the slide forward. What I'm going to do is just give you a little bit of background on Pheasants Forever and why Pheasants Forever are interested in grasslands. Pheasants Forever have a very unique model compared to many of our other nonprofits that you may be used to. We started in 1982. The unique part of our chapters is all of our chapters maintain all of their money that they raise, whether it's banquets or any other funding opportunities that they raise. So more of our money stays locally with the chapters. All our chapters are volunteer ran, they're volunteer directed, and the only money that comes to our national organization from our chapters is the annual memberships. In Montana, we have 14 chapters and over 2,500 members. For our staff, we have 6 farm biologists, 6 coordinating biologists, habitat specialists, a regional rep that assists all of our chapters, and our state coordinator. And you can move forward, Jennifer. Why Pheasants Forever? What are we interested in grasslands for? We have launched a new grasslands initiative in 24 that isn't necessarily a program with money to do projects, but it's a conglomeration of many partners to help us do projects. Grasslands are important to our chapters. They're important to the diverse wildlife populations, hunting opportunities. Intact grasslands are important to our Montana ranchers, and our ranchers support our communities and support Montana. Next. And why we're interested in grasslands is an extreme example right here. Grasslands are on decline across everywhere, but the Great Plains are losing over 2 million acres of grasslands annually, and it is the fastest declining ecosystem in the world. And that's why we're interested in it. Next. Our grassland initiative, our vision is to address the threats across Montana and ensure an upland grassland experience for sportsmen, ranchers, communities. We'll strive to anchor our intact grasslands. We will move forward with addressing vulnerable grasslands, and something that we're have many projects in beginning right now is converting altered grasslands back to grass. And then also increasing public access to the grasslands. Next. Some of the things that we do to make this happen is with anchoring the grasslands, addressing the vulnerable, and restoring is by creating grazing systems that are sustainable. This means water systems, new fences, easements, assisting with grazing advice, working with our partners for many of the fence and water projects, reseeding projects, helping producers convert CRP acres that have expired into a grazing system by adding the fences, adding the water, making them sustainable. And then increasing public access. This isn't a requirement that we have with our program, but it's something we want to work towards, is the ability to allow the public to see and utilize more of the grasslands. And the way we're wanting to do this is through better partnerships with our landowners, our communities, and our partners. We do this with delivering easements and agreements with private landowners to release landlocked public lands. Like I said, this isn't a requirement that we require our producers to agree to. It's just something that we work towards in the process. Next. Some of our objectives to the Grassland Initiative is we're wanting to impact 1.5 million acres over the next 5 years. That's 750 acres, 1,000 acres of intact grassland that will anchor and keep it intact. 600,000 acres of vulnerable grasslands that we want to make sure stays in grass, and 150,000 acres of converted grasslands we want to restore. Increase our private landowner engagement, improve our partnerships with landowners by 50%, up our marketing and communication by 50%, and raise up to $2 million or more of unrestricted funding. And I say unrestricted funding, that is money that could come from our chapters, could come from private donors, but it's not tied to a specific program or a specific grant. And then we're in the process of applying for more grants and looking at trying to secure $10 million in grant funds. Next. A lot of our strategy to do this is our Grassland Initiative isn't a program, like I said, with money specifically for all these projects, but it's a pathway for us to hold ourselves accountable to get to where we want to go by helping our landowners anchor in this Grassland Initiative. Our goals around the Grassland Initiative are tied to all of our Montana staff, not only myself as the coordinating biologist, but our Farm Bill biologists in the NRCS offices, our biologists in our BLM offices. It's just holding us all accountable to get to this particular initiative. Our projects and partners, our workload, our grants are all going towards improving grasslands and doing the projects like the Mesic projects, riparian fence, water projects are all centered around improving grassland. Next. Our grants, our positions, our chapters are all on board with this goal of a grassland initiative. Our current grant projects and our money are coming from NIFWIF, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, and our RCPP projects with NRCS. Some of our other partners are the World Wildlife Fund and others like Ducks Unlimited, Win It Aces, other nonprofits that help us and we can help them towards grasslands and infrastructure for producers. Like Desi said, with ACES, almost all of our projects with landowners require a private landowner agreement. Our agreements are also in the 10-year agreement not to destroy or remove the projects that we assist with. Pheasants Forever is a little bit more unique in that we do not have a formal application process. You contact myself or one of our other biologists and we can come out, meet with you as a producer on the ground and help you establish and build a project that is as comprehensive as we can with fence, water, Mesic. And then we go to our partners, whether it's World Wildlife Fund, Fish and Wildlife, and we put together funding specifically for your project. Our cost share is also the 1-to-1, 50-50 cost share. One of the new programs that we are working on right now is I'll give you guys just a real quick rundown of something that we talked about and are working on today. For producers that may have a large projects, just throwing out an example of, say the project is $400,000. It might be financially too hard for a producer to float that whole entire bill. We're working on an innovative finance program to assist producers with giving them a 0% 10-year loan to be able to do some of these big, very large projects. That'll be coming up in the next year, is to have that opportunity. So as I talk to you as producers and anyone else that have large projects with us or any of our other partners, we will have that opportunity to assist in doing that zero interest loan program. So there's a lot of things Pheasants Forever is very unique at. We like to be able to be extremely flexible in our funding, extremely flexible in what we can help you do on your ranch to keep your grass in grass or get it back to grass. And my information is on there. Jennifer can share my information with the entire group at any time.
Thanks, Josh. Since you mentioned World Wildlife Fund, I'm going to jump to Carolyn. I'll let you just give a quick intro of to who you are and who you're with. You don't have to go through all 4 of your questions if you don't want to.
Okay, great. Yeah, I'll keep it short because there's similar questions throughout the night. Hi, everyone. I am Caroline Caldwell. I joined World Wildlife Fund in October. I'm a senior specialist. You might have met some of my counterparts already. Myself and Alexis Bonagofsky live in Billings. We also have Caitlin Gillespie, who lives in Malta. Aaron Clausen and Leah Thayer live in Bozeman. And then we have one gal in Nebraska, Ann Dvorak, and Kate Rasmussen lives in South Dakota. And so that's our team. And I represent, like I said, World Wildlife Fund, more specifically the Sustainable Ranching Initiative. And later on, I'll talk a little bit about our program, RSVP. But for the most part, we work in the Great Plains now, just changed from the Northern Great Plains. So we're still navigating what that will look like, where we will be in Southern Great Plains expansion. But I think for the purpose of this call, haven't changed our boundaries in Montana. So really excited to work with you all. I see we have a couple of our ranchers on this call, which is awesome. They can also inform some information and questions that y'all might have. And I guess a background on me, I just returned from a couple years in New Zealand. I was working in and around agriculture. Prior to that, I was in Montana. I managed the Kivira Coalition's New Agrarian Program, and I was also a stock manager on a ranch in Western Montana. So I think I'll leave it at that for now. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks. Chris, do you want to do a quick intro of you and WSE?
Yes, thank you for including us in this presentation. We're happy to tell you a little bit about ourselves and our programs. I'm Chris Mayhus. I'm the Executive Director for Western Sustainability Exchange. We are a nonprofit, kind of located all over the state. Adele Stenson is on here from Weibo, and Gabby Haugen is here from Kinsey. We've got an employee in Pompey's Pillar, a few more in the Big Timber area and Livingston area. We started here in the Livingston area 32 years ago, and we've kind of spread all across the state. We've got ranchers that we work with in Idaho and Wyoming. So we've always had the mission of helping ranchers because we're a rancher-led organization. We really believe that ranchers are the best stewards of the environment. And so we've taken it on as our mission to help ranchers understand the best ways to manage and steward their resources, to be more profitable and be able to hand the land over to the next generation in better shape than we found it. And so, we've been working on that mission for 30 years. We've got education and networking as part of our programming. We also have some tools and services that we provide. And one of our big initiatives is always our markets and incentives program. And so I'll talk a little bit tonight about a carbon marketing opportunity where you can get paid funds for hopefully for infrastructure development and labor and different things to improve your grazing system in exchange for trading carbon credits to companies that want to pay to help you do that. So I'll be describing that more, and I invited Adele to join us because she's one of the ranchers in our program and can give you a little bit of personal experience from the rancher perspective. So
Great.
thank you.
And last but not least, Dr. Arnold, do you want to introduce yourself?
Thank you, Abby. So I'm Shannon Arnold. I'm a professor at Montana State University in Bozeman, and my focus is on agricultural and extension education. And I have been working in the arena of agritourism since about 2018. And so doing some research on what agritourism looks like within the state of Montana as it continues to grow. And what are some opportunities that are out there for our farmers and ranchers to be able to offer agritourism on their operations. And so over the past 7 or 8 years, I've had lots of different opportunities to be involved with the Montana Agritourism Steering Committee, which Abby is on as well, where our goal is just lots of different interested stakeholders in promoting agritourism in our communities. And one of our goals was always to create a state association. So we are currently in development of the Montana Agritourism State Association to provide some more resources and education to producers. I also have had the privilege to have a couple different grants. I've had one from Western SARE, and was able to lead a group of 14 producers around the state for the last couple years in a program for them to be able to look at other agritourism operations across the state so they can then take those ideas back to their farms and ranches and be able to implement some of those. So I can talk about some of those later tonight as well. And so I have just had a lot of different experiences with agritourism through the years that I'm happy to provide some insight or answer some questions about what that looks like for Montana. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. So when Jennifer and Megan and I were kind of brainstorming this series, one of the topics that kept coming up was diversification of income and what that looks like. And traditionally, I think in the central Montana region and most of Montana, it was you know, calve out some cows and then put in some crops, and that was your diversification. Then all your eggs weren't in one basket. That looks a lot different these days. Obviously, you can still do that, but there's a lot of other options as well. And so that's what we're hoping to introduce you to tonight, using those large assets, maybe twice or 3 times to diversify your income. So I'm going to jump back to Caroline. Could you talk about a couple of those programs that offer some, cash in the pocket maybe for practices that ranchers are doing anyway?
Yeah, absolutely. So we don't necessarily do cash in the pocket. We more do cost share. So what's been mentioned before, I think we all have quite similar programs of that 1-to-1 ratio share. And so I guess I'll talk about our RSVP program, which is Ranch Systems and Viability Network. And so the bottom line goal of this is to make a really lasting positive impact across the Great Plains to, as we've all been saying, avoid grassland conversion. And we really want to support both the management improvements and also the people and their education and helping people find those avenues for diversification, whether that's through education. We have scholarships for that $5,000, which goes a pretty long way, and that's not including ranching for profit. That's a whole separate pot of money. And so that's a pretty awesome program that we divide out into our cost share, like I said, 1-to-1, and we have to be able to show that it is improving either grazing management, animal rotation. So we do stock water improvement, We also do mesic restoration. Leah, who I just mentioned, was an intern for 2 years and now she's hired on full time. So she is our beaver girl and she loves it. And she goes out to a lot of ranches. She has a lot of programs kind of up and coming. So that's something we're really excited about. And we've had a lot of feedback from ranchers about, hey, what more can we do? And we also have a reseeding program, which doesn't require membership with RSVP. And so that's a pretty special thing where we work with the rancher to figure out what seed mix would you would use for your land. And then we also do ecological monitoring. We do, I think it's birds and vegetation and carbon. And what else? Yeah, I think that's most of it. And so, like I said, no grassland conversion for 10 years. Also written management plan for grazing, a clear intention to improve grazing practices. We don't just want to be, a pot of money. We really want to work with the ranchers and support that relationship that they have with both us and also RSA and Winnet ACEs and EMRA and all of the organization groups that we also help support. And so we think of as more than here's some infrastructure money, where here's a community that you can engage in and you can bounce ideas off of because, we have a lot of great staff and it's a really exciting realm to be in, but also the ranchers are ones that hold a lot of that knowledge. And so anytime we can encourage connections for technical assistance or find experts in the fields of, well drilling or grass management, or we've heard a lot of succession planning this year has been kind of top of the question. So we take all that information and we try and compile lists of people to help transition or diversify income or just kind of get them the most that they can get for their ranch. And I think that's kind of where our avenue for earning additional income is we give a lot of those educational opportunities and just 50-50 cost share and education stipend.
Great. Thanks for clarifying that. I'm gonna stick with you and take it a step further. So you mentioned all sorts of things there. I could improve some stock water situations. I could get my grazing plan written down. I could do some cross fencing. How best for a rancher that's, novice or just getting started in these programs or just getting started in general, how best to engage with you and what does that relationship look like? Do you help coach those decisions? Is it rancher, led? What does that relationship look like?
Yeah, absolutely. We try and see what the goals are. I think before telling people what to do, you have to find out what they would like to do. And so it's really rancher driven. If they want to divide everything and rotation the graze 4 times a day, that's great. Let's figure out how to get that temporary fence up. Maybe they don't need a lot of permanent fence cross fencing. And then a step from there is, how do you manage your animals to move them every day? What winter grazing class could you go to? And I think that there's a really nice relationship that we build with the ranchers and try to maintain of here's the educational opportunities. Let's find out what you're really interested in. And then we also just have different strengths in our staff. I've been a rancher for my entire career until this point. We have people who are in NRCS and understand that, nitty gritty acronym world. And so if that's the path that people want to go down, the NRCS path, that's awesome. That's such a great route. And then also just encouraging these other groups. I think we mentioned EMRA earlier today. That peer-to-peer assistance and us sub-agreeing money for that technical assistance where they can go to these meetings. And I think it is, it depends is such a way to get, not try and get out of that question, but is definitely a reflection of how really diverse our ranching community is in their goals. It's not just in their, enterprises. It's what they want to do with that and where they are right now with their grandfather still part of it. And then I was just at Ranching for Profit last week, and there's a few people who have great big ideas that'll take place in 5 years, and this year is just going to be subdividing a couple pastures. So yeah, I think it depends, and we're excited to find that kind of gray space that people are working in.
Nice. So building off of that, because I think a lot of the goals that Carolyn just mentioned, Josh mentioned as well. So Josh, can you tell us a little bit, like, do you guys work closely with World Wildlife Fund? Do you see a lot of farmers, ranchers, landowners come to you that have already worked with WWF or are looking at working with them when they're approaching you about the programs and your initiatives as well?
We do. We have many projects with WWF, some ongoing right now, and some in the planning stages. I haven't had a chance to work specifically with Carolyn yet, but we'll be getting there. Pheasants Forever, I think last year I helped sign up 4 different ranchers with WWF programs, and our programs with Pheasants Forever, whether it's water or fence, are almost identical to the same goals that WWF have or ACES have. And it makes it really easy if a producer comes to me for a fence project, if I can't get it completely done, or if it's a really large project, I can go to Carolyn or Desi, and we can combine our resources with our nonprofits to be able to make that project happen. So that's one of the unique things with all of our local and area nonprofits is we're close enough in our goals and close enough in our funding and strategies that we can work together to put the project on the ground and get it done.
Nice. Love that partnership to kind of capital stack to make it happen. So that's good to hear. So Chris, you mentioned carbon markets. I'd love to hear a little bit more just about how participating in the carbon market might add an extra income stream to a farm or ranch.
Yeah, happy to give you a little bit of information about that. I'll start out by saying it's complicated and it's simple. I mean, really what carbon trading, what getting involved in any kind of a carbon market is about is just improving your grazing system. And so you sequester carbon by growing more plants and managing those plants in a way so that there's more residual, so that, some of that residual ends up on the ground. There's better water retention. All of that creates healthier soil, and the carbon that's stored in the soil is what you can trade to consumers who are concerned about climate change. And no matter your political stance, carbon sequestration and trading was very political 20 years ago when I first got involved in it, but it's economic today. And so, there really aren't many companies anymore that don't talk about the date that they're going to reach carbon neutrality or carbon negativity. So I realize that it will continue to be politically charged. It's hard to avoid political conversations, but when it comes to carbon, there's a lot of companies that are investing money. There's a lot of individuals that are investing money into this carbon marketplace. And so it's real money. They're motivated to help you enhance your grazing system, and that doesn't mean moving every day. A lot of people say, well, I can't participate in a program like that because I just don't have the time or the water or the labor, the materials. I just can't make that big of a change. And one of the things I want to stress is it's not about making that big of a change. It's really about managing your grazing in a way where you're rotating, you're using pastures at different times during the year, every year, and you're really prioritizing that rest and recovery. And I think that's the ingredient that's been missing for decades in the grazing conversation. We want to talk about the animals. We want to talk about how long they're going to be in the pasture. We want to talk about how big the pasture is. We want to talk about what the pasture looks like when the animals come back, but we don't spend a lot of time talking about how long we should wait before bringing the animals back. And I think that's really the most important concept in creating opportunities to trade carbon is that rest and recovery. So we're working really hard on ways to educate folks and provide technical assistance. It's really awesome, all the different groups and partnerships that we have providing resources for this. And I haven't talked to a rancher yet that's part of one of these programs that has anything bad to say. Obviously, everyone has their strings and they have their parameters that they have to run their program by to get the funding, but they all are pretty rancher friendly. So anyway, the carbon trading thing, just to give you a quick sketch of that, we got involved in 2017 with a company called Native, and we've been working with them to develop a project that encompasses Montana, about half of Wyoming, and dips a little bit into Idaho is the project region. Again, Native gets money from companies and essentially sets up a system kind of like a mutual fund. So these companies are dumping money into the consumer side of the project, and then our job is to go out and find ranchers that want to participate and be on the supply side of the equation. It's completely voluntary on both sides. There's no government regulation at all. The credits are validated by a third party. Vera is one of the main ones, but there's Gold Standard, there's B Carbon, there's all kinds of different ways to validate your project. The validation is just basically a way to say that the credits are being monitored and that they are happening, that the carbon sequestration is taking place. Most carbon programs, there's 5 of them in Montana, and I know in your area, there's 3 different companies that have agreements with ranchers just in the Lewistown, Winnett area. So there's different companies that you can work with. Lots of opportunities out there for funding. And so, but most of them require some kind of a long-term commitment as well. If a company or an individual wants to purchase a carbon credit, they want to know that what you're doing is going to have a lasting impact. And I think you'll find that with, all the programs that were described here have some kind of a longer term commitment to keep that grass intact and keep that soil healthy. So in a nutshell, that's how it works. We can get into a lot more details later, but it is a real opportunity and it's real money, and it's not at this time regulated by the government. It is a fully voluntary opportunity.
So to expand on that, and I don't know if you want to answer this or have your producer answer it, but what does the relationship look like? Do I have to do all of the homework and then come to you with a ready to go package, or does WSE work with me to kind of navigate these sort of uncharted territories?
Yeah, so I will start that and then I'll pass the ball over to Adele and let her give you her experience. So Native does most of the work on the demand side. Like I said, they work with the companies, they work with all the verification and validation, they do all the measurement and monitoring, and that's pretty typical of most of the carbon companies that are working in Montana. And our job then is to work with the producer to generate all the information that has to be generated on a ranch basis. So essentially, the way the process works is Native has a really simple application, takes about 10 or 15 minutes to fill out. It gives them information about the ranch, about your practices, what you've done historically, what your future plans are, just to make sure that you're eligible, because additionality is a term that gets thrown around a lot in the carbon world, but you can't get paid for what you've already done. You get paid for the work that you can do in the future. Sorry for my dogs there. So anyway, we can walk you through the steps of the process. You fill out an application. We need to get an idea of how your pastures are configured. So we need to know what your baseline management is. Then we look at a 5-year plan. So looking 5 years out, if we develop your water, we're able to change some of your fence lines or put in some temporary fence. We do have quite a few producers that we are aware of that are using virtual fence now. There's one of them on this call, but I won't incriminate her. That works for some people, but just a quick notation on virtual fence. It's not the answer, and it doesn't control your animals all the time. But if you're patient with it and you use it for what it's designed to do, it can be a very effective tool. So anyway, once we have that 5-year plan in place, then Native uses that to model the value of the contract. And so they can look at your change over that 5-year period. And basically that's what you're getting paid for, is your change in management, the progress that you can make. And once they model that, then they can come up with a contract, and then Native's contracts are they're a 40-year commitment that can be transferable to the next owner. You can incorporate lease ground, whether it's private or public, that's all eligible. And then they just work with you on the terms of that contract to negotiate it out and sign it. And then I'll turn it over to Adele really quick to kind of give a little bit of recap of her experience and what it's done to help her and her family change their practices and improve things.
All right, thanks, Chris. We can't remember if we said that we ranch in the Webo area, so we're way eastern Montana, rough country, a lot of badlands. And about 3 or 4 years ago, we were wanting to get connected with a carbon company, and quite honestly, it was for the extra income. We saw an article that was written by WSE about Native, and so we actually ended up learning about WSE and Native kind of simultaneously. The partnership worked really well for us because WSE kind of provides the educational portion and the networking. So we were able to learn about a lot of these other things like World Wildlife Fund and some of these other groups and what they could help with as well. Chris came out to the ranch, was one of the first steps, and drove around with my husband. And our concern was we can't fence this into small paddocks. We kind of had that idea that in order to do a carbon project that included grazing, we were going to have to do moves at least every couple of days, and it's just not feasible for us. So we worked with Chris, and we already kind of had an idea that we wanted to add more restoration or more restoration time for the land. And so he helped us figure out how we could use our water and not have to put in so much fence. And so our big thing has been way longer rest time. We probably, by the end of our 5-year plan, I think we'll be rotating about 3 times more often than we were. And instead of having the cows in the same spring pasture every year, it gets rotated around when those pastures are used. So Chris helped us kind of figure out what we might do, and then got us in contact with Native, and Native helped us work through that 5-year plan, like what was going to work for us, what were our goals, and what kind of an expense it was going to be to get us there. So ours was pretty expensive because it was mostly water infrastructure and just a little bit of fence. And so they have a program called Help Build, and you can get that for 1 to 5 years, I believe, to help with infrastructure costs. And so it's basically an advance on your carbon payment because in those first years, you haven't proved anything yet. So it's at a little bit lower rate than what we'll get when we're selling it on the market. But for us, it allowed us to make infrastructure improvements that we wanted to do anyway, and do it in a better way. I guess that was one of the big eye openers for us, is we really thought that we were doing well because we were leaving grass in our pastures, and our pastures look better than our neighbors. But we've come to find out we've got a really long way to go in range management. I really appreciated, as far as working with Native, that they're very flexible. They understand that a grazing plan that you make in March may not be what is actually implemented in July due to whatever the circumstances might be. And the same with the 5-year plan. You know, we got held up on our water development because our water guide just couldn't get to us. And so they're able to use some flexibility. They're held to another standard, so they don't get to make all of the rules. I guess the one caution I would say with, I believe, any of the carbon programs is if you think that other than in the beginning, like the help build stage, that it's going to be okay, I'm going to get this payment every year at this time on this date. It doesn't work like that because the verification process is not it's not real smooth yet on a global level. And so there has to be a little of that understanding. I have heard people say, well, 40 years is a long time to commit the next generation to this project. And we look at it like, that just means our kids have the opportunity to have passive income and a better grazing program than we have ever had in the past. And so for us, it's really been a win-win thing. And then, like I said, the combination of having kind of WSC's connections and expertise and being able to help us find other sources of both information and funding, along with working with Native, has really been a good fit. And now I can see how that could tie in with a lot of these other programs that need a one-to-one match. Could really be a good thing for other producers.
Great. Thanks for giving your perspective, Adele. We appreciate that. So we've had three organizations here talk about, saving the grasslands. For better or worse, Yellowstone did a great job of capturing those shots of those grasslands, bringing 12 to 13 million tourists to Montana annually over the past couple of years. That's a huge portion of agritourism. So I'm hoping that Dr. Arnold could talk a little bit about what agritourism looks like, and that it probably is a lot more than a dude ranch that we typically think of.
Thanks, Abby. Yeah, so I think one of the reasons that agritourism has grown in popularity is because of the increase in tourism that we received from lots of different places, including Yellowstone, which I have never seen the show. But, we have had an increase in tourism after COVID as well. And I think everybody's seeing it. And so producers are looking for ways to be able to diversify their income and increase their income, as many of you have already mentioned here. And so for agritourism, really, it's just establishing your farms or ranches as a travel destination, inviting the public onto your land and for recreation or educational purposes. And so producers are looking at this to be able to maybe have a more consistent income stream throughout the year, when maybe, during the winter, they might be able to offer some different activities. As we look at agritourism, there's lots of different definitions out there. But typically we try to say that there's 5 different categories of agritourism that producers can consider as an agritourism activity to add to their existing farm or ranch. So direct sales, these could be farm stands on your farm or ranch, or it could be U-picks or U-cuts that are located on your ranch, or maybe even just a farm store. The second is entertainment, so festivals or different music venues that you might hold on the farm, as well as corn mazes, pumpkin patches, a lot of those fall types of activities. Outdoor recreation, a lot of that has been talked about today, so allowing the public access onto your ranch to be able to fish or hunt, or just take pictures of wildlife. Lots of different ways that you could utilize your lands for outdoor recreation. Hospitality, so we've had a lot of interest in farm to table type dinners, farm to table type community events, and just being able to host visitors on your particular farm or ranch. And then finally, education. So maybe offering some of those classes or some of those farm tours to different groups so that they can have access. So I think that's one of the big things with agritourism is the public has this now direct access to be able to contact a farm or ranch and be able to participate and become educated, which I think is one of the primary goals of many of the producers, is to educate the public about what is agriculture, being able to connect them with their food, while also being able to utilize the resources that they have on their farms and ranches. So one of the first things we ask all of our farmers and ranchers to do is, what do you currently have? What resources do you have? What infrastructure do you have? What does your land look like? What are some of the features of that land? What's your soil? What's your water? What are some of those natural resources that you might be able to utilize that you already have to be able to add this activity onto your farm or ranch? And then thinking about if there's some special features maybe that you have on your place, on your land. Maybe that might be grasslands that could be used for hunting or maybe even photography. Several of our producers have partnered with Land Trust. If you've heard of Land Trust, it's really just a recreation access network where ranchers can put their land on almost like an Airbnb website, and the public can then book a experience or a stay on that land to hunt or fish or have some sort of recreational access. So there's lots of really creative things going on with agritourism, and I think it's only going to continue to grow as people are looking to increase their income, also educate the public about, what is agriculture. And then also was mentioned here is creating that space for the next generation to continue to have that land and continue to farm and ranch, but maybe it might just look a little bit different. Several of our ranchers were able to bring back their children to the farm. It doesn't look as traditional as maybe it did. They're not working in the farm in the same sense, but maybe they're operating the farm store, or they might be providing farm tours. So many different types of activities and ideas that can be integrated into agritourism, I think, is what makes it so unique.
Awesome. Well said. I love that you mentioned the education portion in there. And I think that, there's been a lot talked about tonight about resting, certain pastures or adding a species mix to a field. Those would be great opportunities to chat with folks that they don't see that in Yellowstone. They don't understand that portion. So a great opportunity to be able to talk about what you've done and what you've invested in your operation to make it look like it does. We have a couple more questions here, but I really want to make sure that the audience gets a chance to tap into this panel. So we might open it up. If you have a question and you want to just, jump off of mute and say it or type it in the chat, we'll capture it. Any have questions for anyone?
I'd just like to pipe in. This is Dale V. Seth, and we've worked with WWF with their RSVP program and their education program, and have really enjoyed that. I've just entered a contract with Native, and that was through WSE, and that's also been a great opportunity. And I guess I would just like to encourage all the producers out there to work with your organizations such as ACES and EMRA, STAY, RSA, to I think it just puts you in a lot better place.
Thanks,
I guess
Dale. You
that's
could have
all I
led
have.
this whole thing.
No.
Yeah, no, I think that's great to have you guys here to show that this is, this isn't just a pie in the sky thought process, that you can layer these programs to get the results that you're hoping to attain.
But keep up the good work, crew. Thanks.
Well, yeah, you bet. Applause all around. Any other questions? Delcy wants to know, does Shannon or anyone in the area do site-specific consults, advice / planning pertaining to agritourism?
So currently, we don't have anybody that does that, but there's two people that I would say that could be good contacts for you. One would be your local FADC. person that's in your area. A lot of the steering committee members are the Food and Ag Development Center representatives. And so they have been involved in these conversations. One of our goals, this Montana Agritourism Association will be established this year. And a lot of the board members for that association are producers that I've worked with for the past couple years. And so our goal is then for them to be able to be mentors in their areas. We have them spread across the state so that they can be providing some of those consultations and just providing some different, like you said, advice for how to get started or what you might do for agritourism. So there's certainly some resources out there. I can connect you with some of those. I guess I'll say there is a Montana agritourism website that I developed that has resources on there for specifically producers. So there's a lot of different resources listed there and educational materials. And then the other site that I would say that would be good to look at is Abundant Montana. In the past year and a half, added to their site. If you go to their site where it says find farms, there's now a tab for finding agritourism farms that you can click that, and it'll show you different agritourism operations across the state. And reaching out to anybody that's listed there, I think that we've met some incredible people, and everybody's so willing to share what they've done on their farms and ranches. I think would also be a good option for you. So those are some really good places to start. Again, I'm happy to help you connect with some of our producers, but once we get the association started, that's one of our primary goals, is to be able to have our board members provide that consultation and mentorship to others.
The other thing I would add there too, just to jump in really quick, is Shannon mentioned the land trust business in Bozeman, and not to incriminate Skylar here too much, but she did work for them, and I think she was a rancher outreach person. So that is one of the services that they provide, I believe, and it is a lot more than just hunting and fishing. I know they're booking bird watching and mountain biking and even some different types of camping experiences. So I don't know, Skylar, do you want to expand on that and tell me if I misrepresented that or not?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Yeah, it was said really well earlier that land trust is like kind of Airbnb, but for outdoor recreation, if it falls under that kind of outdoor rec umbrella. Landowners can offer those opportunities for folks to come out and essentially pay an access fee on their property, all of, what's allowed, the rules, the expectations, all set by the landowner without any, long-term sign up or whatnot. And part of what they provide is having really good resources for someone to talk with the landowner about, what they're interested in, what their operation is like, and provide kind of ideas on what they might want to do. And if there's someone, in the Montana area where they have, I used to be a field rep, that can come and meet with you in person on your place, drive around, talk over those ideas, can help you really set up. And they're really hands-on, especially in the get going process where it can kind of be most daunting. But then they also have a lot of, they're really hands-on during the process about any changes you want to see or assistance that you need. So, in that agritourism space, yeah, I worked for Land Trust for almost 2 years, and they're really great. And it was cool to see what they were able to provide for the landowners that they partnered with.
Awesome. Thanks. Good inside perspective there for everyone. Any other questions coming up? I think if nothing else, tonight has really helped show that this is a good partnership or collective partnership among a lot of different organizations, and we definitely haven't captured them all here. There has been a little bit of that acronym soup, but there's a lot of groups and organizations, Win at Aces and Stay being two of them, but there's also Rancher Stewardship Alliance up in the Malta area, EMRA down by Miles City, Eastern Montana area. So there's groups of like-minded individuals that are kind of striving towards the same goals as these organizations. So if you're feeling like you're drinking from a fire hose, or that you're kind of the only one trying to navigate this, like there's a ton of resources. So reach out somewhere, and there isn't necessarily a correct starting point. You know, if World Wildlife Fund seems like your jam, then start there and see where it kind of takes you with your goals. If you'd rather start on the agritourism side and do some outreach and education on your operation to teach people a little bit more about what, you know, Montana farm and ranch life is, then that's a great place to start too. But there isn't a wrong direction to go here. Any questions coming up?
It looks like there is one more question in the
Go
chat.
for it, Jennifer.
Delcy is asking what would be the next steps, and just said that the last time we emailed with you, Abby, you shared about making a business plan. So they've been working on that. And is that what they should still be focusing on?
I want to let someone else take that before I jump in.
Well, I can jump in and say that any of us on the call, or if you hear of other programs that sound interesting to you, we are happy to help you with next steps if any of those sound like they might be a fit for your ranch. And so, you know, yeah, I think a business plan is going to be really important. And these educational opportunities too, Ranching for Profit, or we're going to be holding a marketing school this summer. And there's more information on our Rancher Network newsletter. So I would say next steps are, you know, signing up for any and all resources that sound interesting, and we're all here to help. And I know we can all refer back to one another. So yeah, whatever strikes your interest, just reach out, and Abby can connect you to any of us, and a lot more. That's the other part, is we are just kind of scratching the surface. There is all kinds of money coming to support conservation and agriculture.
Well
So
said. Thanks, Chris.
don't be afraid of the strings. Most of them are pretty minimal.
Absolutely.
I'll just add to that as well. There's a lot of funds that have come out in the recent years to support farmers and ranchers that are interested in adding agritourism onto their operations. You may have just seen Department of Commerce had an agritourism grant that came out last fall, and there was about 13 different recipients of those agritourism grants to add different types of activities, spaces, different types of things onto their property to promote agritourism. So Department of Ag has several grants. Department of Commerce now has some grants that there is funding out there if that's something that you're interested in. So again, we can try to help connect you to some of those funding resources, and Abby knows about a lot of those as well.
Perfect. Thanks. I don't want to stymie conversation at all. I have to pull double duty tonight, so I'm going to head over to the city commission meeting. But if there's more questions, please continue. Please either pipe up or put them in the chat. I know that Jennifer will be sending out a follow-up email with contact information, so you don't have to try and scribble down everyone's emails or try and get what that acronym meant. That'll all be in there, as well as some of the sites that have been mentioned tonight. So I'm going to pop off. I'm going to hand it over to Jennifer and Megan. Thank you to our panel. You guys have been great. You're always a wealth of knowledge. I always learn something when I listen to you folks. Thank you for your time. Please keep talking, but I'm going to head out.
Perfect. Are there additional questions?
I have one as panelist to panelist. Curious about the legal issues or the things to think about in the legal realm for agritourism. I've had some questions from ranchers asked about that of, having people be around livestock and using knives to cut things on your ranch and maybe eating food. Could you just touch on that a little bit before you invite people to your place?
Sure, yeah, that's the number one question. And it's the first thing that we recommend, or it's recommended that before you begin this, there's a lot of different things to consider, but that being one of the priorities is reaching out to whoever it is that you have for your insurance and talking to your agent about what you plan on doing. And making sure that they do cover or do understand what that looks like. I will share a story. One of our producers, she started bringing people onto the ranch, and they were doing some horseback riding, and she invited them as part of their branding. And as soon as their insurance company found out about it, they dropped them. So that is certainly something to be aware of. There are insurance companies there that do understand and cover these types of activities on, and so doing some research about who they are and having those conversations, I think, is critical. And yes, it is an issue. It's the number one issue of sometimes that deciding factor of whether the producer wants to enter into agritourism or not. I would say there again, the producers that I worked with over the past couple years, they're good resources for and are happy to share their experiences and who they work with as far as insurance agencies. And so something definitely to consider.
And just to chime in on top of that, something maybe to look into is Montana's agritourism statute that we have in place. It is, couldn't tell you the year that it went into place, but thank you. But how it covers for fee activities and things like that. So we do have that as a state that is also a factor in how you layer your liability and whatnot when it comes to agritourism or having anyone on your place, really.
Yeah, thank you, Skylar. So in 2017, it's House Bill 342. It defined agritourism and listed it under the recreational activities that can occur, and that participants assume the liability for the inherent risks that are on the property. But again, that can only go so far, but it certainly has been helpful for that protection when people are coming onto your property, but two, also just acknowledging what agritourism is. And that's really helped with some of the insurance agents understanding what that means and what that involves.
Yeah, that was a really good question. Thank you for asking that. Are there any other questions?
I have one for Shannon that's just kind of a curiosity thing. Are you aware of anywhere that's doing maybe like a community or a regional, I guess, event that maybe would include several different ranches or farms? Like, this one has a corn maze and this one has great bird watching and this one has hiking or whatever, that you could sort of market as a group, and maybe it's a 3 or 4 day event, or maybe it's something you do periodically. I just wondered if that was a thing anybody had tried out here.
No, that's a great question, Adele. So I actually will be moderating a panel at the Governor's Tourism Conference, and we'll have Sarah Calhoun on there from Red Ants Pants, as well as Cole Mannix. And so their two festivals are great examples of that. we just, it's too bad Abby got off because we just on our last agritourism steering committee call, we had a discussion of the Clark River farm to, let's see, pedal to farm tour. And so those are becoming more and more popular, where they have, it's usually over a 1, maybe 2 day period. There's been one in the Bitterroot, and then this one now was on Clark Fork River, where it's more of a bike tour where they'll bike to different farms in the area, and then they'll end up at like the community center or excuse me, the extension center and have a community event. So I think that's becoming more and more common. One of the things that we would like to develop in collaboration with some of the tourism districts is an agritourism trail. Abundant Montana has kind of helped with that as far as listing the agritourism operations across the state, but creating a trail is one of our next ideas. There's Southwest Montana, I think it's the Burger Trail, if you've seen that. We're kind of looking at that and maybe modeling some of our trail after that so that we can provide these different pathways for visitors to be able to find some of these ranches within a certain area.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Well, I'd not seen anything in the chat. And like Abby said, I will include everyone's contact information, email and all of that info in my follow-up tomorrow morning as well. Megan, would you like to go ahead and kind of summarize a little bit and tell us about the next session next Tuesday?
Sure. Again, I know Abby said it, but thank you guys for all of your all of our panelists. There was some really great information. I think there's some great opportunities out there. I know for we have participated with Pheasants Forever and ACES, I believe, on a water project. We are working with WWF on the RSVP program. Been wanting to do that for the last couple of years, but sometimes there's just not enough hours in the day, but excited to see the opportunities that we can improve the health of our land on our property without, I know some of the projects we've wanted to do, we haven't been able to fund them just because of logistics, but through these organizations that has been possible to do that. We've also we are the virtual fence weirdos, and we are with the carbon program. And by going through that program, they came out and sent a grazing specialist that helped us create a grazing plan so that we can be better. Same thing like what Adele said, we thought we were doing good. And then we had a grazing specialist come and realize, okay, we could do a lot of improvements. And so helped us set up a grazing plan, set up range monitoring sites that fit on our needs. So I think there's just a lot of resources out there that are available that are pretty, I know somebody had said low strings attached, that I think they just want to work with us as producers, improve what we're doing. So thank you to all of you guys that spoke. Yes, next week will be our last final session. Again, same time, same place for those of you that are snowed in or almost snowed in. And we're going to have Carolyn Wild speak. She's going to be talking about QuickBooks and Ambrook and kind of the logistics of how to navigate those. Also, I don't know if you noticed, but Jennifer is recording and she'll send out this recording and again, all the resources. So you don't have to remember those. If you do have more questions and not sure where to navigate, please reach out to Jennifer, myself, or Abby. We'll hopefully be able to help navigate that. So sorry for my co-pilot back here, but again, thanks everybody for coming in and joining us, and we'll hope to see you next week.